How much diligence do you do on the companies coming into the accelerator? Because they are very nascent. What does diligence look like coming into your accelerator, the Alchemist Accelerator?
It's 3 basic phases. There's a written application that gets assessed on the classic things that you would look for any company. Then we do a second phase, which is the people. So we do try to reference the people if we have connections between the founders and Alchemists in the community and get thoughts on how those people are. And then there's an in-person interview and an assessment in person that might lead to also further diligence. And in the in-person interview, usually there's 3 people that are interviewing each of the startups. One's usually representing the VCs, one's usually a former alum of Alchemist, and one's usually a successful founder.
Accepting people in these early stages means you're going to make a lot of mistakes. That's part of the game, right? If you're going to get in early, you're going to accept people who you will eventually regret having accepted, or who might disappoint you. How do you deal with having your name on a company where you're no longer rooting for the founder, where the founder has disappointed you or behaved badly? How do you deal with that as an accelerator with them as a graduate with your logo in their deck?
The only way a founder disappoints us is if they act unethically. If they're doing something. Which happens, but it's very rare. So it has happened to us, but it's probably happened once out of the 300 companies that we've funded, just to be clear.
Yeah.
So I just want to make a distinction between that and not succeeding. So we actually think that it's not necessarily a failure if you didn't financially succeed, as long as you did it with all of your heart. And the reality for us is that if we had 100% success, we're not taking enough risk.
Of course.
So
yeah.
we want to be constantly, quote unquote, failing. We want to be, exploring new markets. Like we funded a antimatter company called Positron. Well, Positron's great, and you guys should check them out. But that's going to be a path to figuring out how to build antimatter to get to Mars. And the timing on that may have been different than Rigetti, which was a quantum computing company. But I love them both because they're both really true entrepreneurs. They're not starting a company because they want to be a founder. They want to actually change the world. So
when you do have the bad behavior, which happens once in a while, what do you do?
Yeah.
How do you manage that as an investor?
That's very unfortunate, and this is where you have to separate your roles from the coach of the company to being the fiduciary for the community. So I am your first and foremost the cheerleader of the founder, but I am also a fiduciary for the investors and for all of our customers and all the other mentors that are stakeholders that we that trust us when we're introducing them to companies. So it is not, if somebody's doing something unethical, basically what will happen here is that you have to deliberately do something that is unethical or misrepresenting yourself or doing something that was clearly wrong. And I know there can be gray lines in entrepreneurship around this, but I'm talking about something that's just like
clear cut.
That's clear. Yeah. And if you did that, then what normally happens is that we're assessing the reality is that what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the business, I'm looking at the ethical issues, and I'm looking at the legal issues. And then I'm trying to make an assessment on all those and then make a plan against that. I'll usually talk to the founder directly and ideally have a path where they're going to be invited to remedy the situation in a mutually consensual way. But that usually will require that founder to take some hard medicine and to accept that path. And if they don't accept it, then we have to do what's right, and we have to protect all the stakeholders that are involved.
Yeah, it's the unfortunate part about what we do. And when you're in this early stage, I've had it happen where I just told people you don't need to have me on your cap table. Why don't you just rip up the term sheet, send us back the money, and we'll all move on.
Nope, I've done that as well.
Yeah, it's just like life is short. Like no one investment is likely to make a difference when you get past 200 or 300. I mean, obviously, an outlier of outliers will if you happen to invest in Google or Facebook. But in most cases, like that company that's having the problems is actually not going to be that company anyway. So you just rip up the term sheet, send the money back, send half of it back, whatever,
Or I mean, but even if we don't, even if we've already invested, we'll tell people, you don't need to mention us on your cap table, and you can just move forward, even if it's been like after the company's graduated. And but that doesn't happen. It's not that often.